Welcome to episode 3 of the Feral podcast, Towanda. How staying small might make us feel safe, but in the long run, it's going to suck real hard. In this week's episode, we're going to cover what happens, what are the dangers, what do we lose when we're people pleasers with the very best intentions in the world. We're going to start out with some critical discourse analysis on a moment from the Fried Green Tomatoes movie, the ever famous saran wrap moment. If you haven't seen it, you're going to love it. The next thing that we're going to do, we're going to talk about how dangerous women, and by dangerous women, we could refer to ourselves as ex-good girls, late diagnosed ADHD, firstborn daughters from a high control religious system, and or narcissistic family dynamic. Is this you? Then I'm talking straight to you, and you are going to gasp as you recognize yourself. Next up, we will look at some feral Towanda moments, particularly the famous parking lot scene, and do some critical discourse analysis on that. Why is that important? How does it affect us here now today? Because it absolutely does. And then going to go into a little bit of gentle somatic repatterning, because what's the use of awakening, bringing all these things to light, and then walking away frustrated, or maybe watching another pimple popping video? I don't know, whatever you do to dissociate. But we're going to do some nervous system regulation. It won't take long and it will feel very good. Please stick around for that. Let's have a look at that first clip, shall we?
First of all, I want you to truly dedicate yourselves to finding little ways to putting that magic, that spark, back into your marriage. When we think of romance and marriage, what is the first thought that comes into your mind?
Divorce. Remember when marriage counselors used to tell you to wrap yourself in cellophane to put a little charge into your marriage? Do we really pay for these lectures?
So you can see, it is truly up to you to put that romance back into your relationship.
As I walk this land of broken dreams, I have visions of many things. Happiness is just an illusion.
Evelyn, are you gone insane? My God, people can see you. What if I'd have been a paperboy or something, honey? Get in there. What are you thinking about?
Evelyn. Evelyn. You know, what we really need instead of this baloney is an assertiveness training class for Southern women. But that's a contradiction in terms, isn't it? Especially you.
There are so many things we can talk about in this scene. For one thing, it was the very tried and true high control religious training, and especially just Southern woman training, involving making Evelyn responsible for the spark in her marriage. She is supposed to be perpetually turned on in the presence of her husband. So what does she do but just whip out a single 4-course meal and wrap herself up in saran wrap in this gorgeous little gown with her 2 tight shoes, and there she shows up at the doorway. She is hopeful. She is vulnerable. She is completely putting her dignity on the line because everybody in charge told her that this is what a good woman does. She preserves the spark in her marriage. She puts herself out there, and she's probably making God, G-A-W-D, very happy by doing so. But let's take a closer look. I get that her husband was completely jolted by the surprise, by the experience. And yes, it was in front of the front door, but she was completely covered in the saran wrap. It was layers of saran wrap. She was more covered up than we are today in athleisure most of the time. And all he can do, because he doesn't have the capacity to be present with her, to meet her where she is emotionally, which is the whole reason why she ends up becoming such close friends with Mrs. Threadgood at the retirement home because it's a really special connection, but this woman is starved for connection with others, with self. And that's absolutely crucial to the discussion that we're always going to be having here. But here's the thing, her husband didn't have the capacity to meet her where she was. And instead of saying something to that effect, saying, damn, honey, wow, let's go inside and talk, nothing like that. He dismisses her, and he even puts her on the back foot. He goes, are you crazy? What if the paper boy came up? What if somebody sees you? And it completely collapses her. She allows it to completely collapse her. Now we could ask, why was she so susceptible to collapsing? Probably a lifetime of practice, because if you are a dangerous woman, and I do hope a good, an ex good girl, you already know the script. You were brought up to be the compliant one. Any kind of self-will or desire to have autonomy was either beaten out of you or it was emotionally stripped from you. That's the script. Is this you? So I promised you some critical discourse analysis over this segment. And here it is. What do you put in saran wrap? Do you put a first course? Do you put something extremely luxurious and delicious and extraordinary? No, you put fucking leftovers in saran wrap. And it also implies that he can keep her on the back burner, which is where she stays. In another scene, he comes in after playing baseball. He goes, oh, you got a good scald on that chicken, honey, and sits down in front of a baseball game because it's just too busy. It's all about the game. She's perpetually being stuck in the refrigerator, as it were. She is a leftover in her own life because she allows it to be so, and because she was completely enculturated. She was brought up in a system that demanded that that's the role that she filled. Be the leftover, be the nice girl, be the people pleaser, be on standby. And then if he tells an emotional enough story, then you're supposed to feel sorry for him and fix him up and make him feel better, send him out the door, and then go and suck again, feeling miserable because you've been depleted. Because here's the truth. We've been the emotional shock absorbers. That's what we were brought up to do. And what's so brave and so radical about Evelyn in that moment, and every woman who dares to show up for herself, overcoming a whole lifetime of brainwashing that says, no, 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 you should just cook and clean, be a background person, take care of things, but whatever you do, don't just be yourself in living color and tell the truth, or seek that authentic connection with yourself and others. Evelyn was choosing herself over invisibility, and that is something that an authoritarian organization cannot abide, is anybody thinking for themselves except the people at the very top. If you grew up in a high control system, you know this moment in your bones. Religious cages that called obedience godliness. Families that prized silence above truth. Cultures that told us that your job is to serve, smile, and keep the spark alive. This is assertive trainingness for Southern women. Do it all, take the blame, and then when he shrugs, apologize for not being sweet enough. But here's the dangerous truth. We're not responsible for keeping the flame burning in a system that thrives on our service and erasure. We've been scapegoated long enough. And let's face it, Eve was the original scapegoat. I'm going to say that again. Eve was the original scapegoat. Am I right?
If I can help somebody as I go,
Finally.
as I go,
Thanks. Been out here all day.
if I can show
Excuse me, I was waiting for that space.
Yeah? Tough. Face it, lady, we're younger and faster.
Towanda. Face it, girls. I'm older and I have more insurance.
Okay, obviously, this is an overreaction. Nobody's advocating crazy acts of rage because you've got better insurance. No one's advocating that. But in this movie, it is a funny moment that embodies what so many of us feel when we finally do a sovereign act. And it can feel as big as what she did, but it could just be refusing to give somebody what they want from you. It could be just as simple as not saying anything when they want to pull it out of you. It can be an incredibly straightforward act. It could be using your voice online to share the truth about who you are and what you do, which does scare the ever living hell out of most people. And most of us wear all kinds of masks for all kinds of audiences. And we might not go all the way into code switching, but I can assure you right now, I speak with less of a Southern accent when I'm online, mainly because I want you to hear me, but I also don't want you to think I'm a dumb redneck. I'm a college educated woman, a published author, and I don't want to come across as someone who isn't. The thing that I find most delicious about this scene is that Evelyn, critical discourse analysis, she's behind the wheel in her own life. It's her driving the car, her making the decisions. Evidently she was tired or it was hot and she didn't feel like walking from a further parking spot. And there was just that moment, those young women disrespected her. They were rude, they were dismissive, they were nasty. And it was in just a moment when Evelyn decided, you know what? I'm not playing that game anymore. I will not allow that. I will stand for myself. And again, we don't do the Towanda move she did, but Towanda is an expression I think we need to bring back. What do you think? It's a day later, and I'd be lying if I said I was having a good hair day. I'm getting it cut tomorrow. Now we get to the favorite part, my favorite part. It's all kinds of fun to do the critical discourse analysis, to really understand the shape of what it is that we're working with this week, which is self-erasure. So, whether or not you are late diagnosed ADHD, firstborn daughter from a high control religious system and or narcissistic family dynamic, you may find a little difficulty in keeping your nervous system regulated in these days and times. Very recently, the leader of Japan stepped down. A major leader in France stepped down. Tumult is everywhere. So it's super important for us to learn how to regulate our nervous systems. And it's really interesting. And by that, I mean a fascinating view into the culture, because almost all the research has been done on who? Men. Assuming that we're just smaller bodied with different features kind of people. And it's like, I had to do that for the filters. But yeah, our primary regulating hormone for people born with uteruses is oxytocin. It's the bonding, it's the connecting hormone. And yes, some people, you can absolutely have that with a big O. I don't know about you, but I can't walk around all day with that on my mind. Can you imagine? You're in the grocery store, and you're like, and it's like, it's just not appropriate for everyday life. Or you're in the gym, and it's like you've got thoughts on your mind, and that doesn't work for me. I'm a more private person. But here's what you can do. There are other ways to get that oxytocin that are much more practical. No shade to the other way, but especially if you're neurodivergent, autism, ADHD, eh, that isn't, it's just too much to be thinking about all the time. And it's just too much. It's just too much. It's overstimulating to have on your mind 24/7. So what I want to do with you is to co-regulate with oxytocin in a way that you can. We've talked about even just if you have a pet, just hanging out with your little animal or your big animal, but just that can be very regulating. But connecting with other people, other safe people, having any sense of community is hugely regulating. It makes us feel much safer. We create so much more safety in our world, and there's a ripple effect. So if you would like, you could let's take a nice deep breath with me and then let it out. So if you were breathing in to the count of 4, say, you could let it out to the count of 6. For example, you do what feels good for you. Bottom line, when we breathe in a way that feels good and we exhale for a longer period of time, and we do that for a few times, experts have found that it lowers our blood pressure, it calms us out, and it's something you can even do in traffic. One of my favorite times, one of my favorite times to use it. And so let's just do that for a moment. And another thing we can do is to just, if you're sitting, feel the support, feel the chair underneath you, supporting you, holding you up. Feel your feet on the ground. And just be there with me, just for a moment. It's that easy. It's that easy. And you can create that for yourself. Other things you can do that uh, can promote that sense of connection with self. I mean, the sky's the limit. I'd like to know what helps you to connect, to be present with yourself. Believe it or not, when I'm done recording this, I'm going to bake my first loaf of sourdough. I've had the starter on the counter, feeding it every day for a week, and I'm a little intimidated. Have you seen those pictures of women holding up their sourdough like a fish? If women did dating profiles and they hold it up and you see the sourdough and they look really good. But that's what I'm doing. And it's going to make me feel good. And there's just, for me, everybody's different. I'm getting a sense of nourishment working with this live culture. And of course, you know what I'll be doing to it later when it's in the oven. I feel disloyal to my culture. But there we are. So let me know how that lands with you and how cultivating oxytocin works for you. And one last thing about that I'm finding really, 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 really useful, and this is very trauma informed, is if you can cultivate that sense of falling in love with what it is that you are doing and to be more in a creative mode, it is the best feeling and it's the most regulating feeling. So let me know how that lands with you. So, how do we do it? How do we step out of the plastic wrap and into our own skin? How do we stop fawning and people pleasing and giving up cultivating, nurturing, nourishing who and what we actually are? Imagine that. When you're brought up to be somebody's servant, shock absorber, surge protector, the second banana house elf, you don't, we often don't even know who we are until we get to experiment for a while, create, see what lights us up, do more of what lights us up. And this is what luminous women do. I've joked around and called us dangerous women, but we're not ramming cars in the parking lot. We're not doing anything inflammatory or, terrible. But it can feel dangerous. It can feel dangerous to unmask in a group where you don't exactly belong. Like, for example, I used to be a church lady. I was in Christian ministry. I was brought up in a very right wing religious family. And I mean, in all different directions. And then I deconvert. I go to college to a major university. I get a degree in communications, become a published author. I am a heretic. I have just completely fallen away. And I couldn't be happier about it. But it's hard not to mask in groups where I know people are religious because I get them, I resonate with them, we have a lot in common, and yet I don't belong. I don't belong. I don't belong. They know it. I know it. I just don't belong in those groups. And the more I'm honest with myself, the better I feel. But that can feel dangerous. It can feel scary because all humans, we want to belong somewhere. And that's the thing. When you have deconverted, even though it was a toxic mimic kind of community in many ways, if it's based on hatred and exclusion of others and other authoritarian things, which we probably shouldn't discuss right now, then, but still, if there was a baby being born, if there was a funeral, if there was a wedding, you knew there would be community around you and you would be there for other people. There are people who I've been really close to in different groups. Even the last ministry that I worked for, there are people I will always love. And it was very hard leaving. And that's a difficult thing. And we have to make new community for ourselves. And that's something I'm working on. I want us to have online community. Community will save your life. So, thank you so much for joining me, for sticking around. And I really look forward to seeing you next week. I have a number of different episodes prepped. And hopefully for Halloween, I'll be doing an episode of True Blood with Sookie Stackhouse because it's fun. Let me know what you want, any kind of pop culture moments you want to examine, things you want to talk about. I'm really looking forward to this community and this exploration with you. Thank you.